Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last webinar of 2016. Today we've had very good feedback on these, and certainly the audiences certainly seem to indicate to us that they're working, and we'll be continuing these through next year. Dominic at the end will describe the forthcoming venues for the first quarter of 2017. Now we've got a break from tradition today. Normally these are pretty highly technical or discussing recent deliverables from the Risk Authority scheme, but we've had repeated calls to assist the membership understand better how we deliver this information via the website and via the Risk Authority website, and the associations it has and benefits that can be drawn from the extended family of guides, documentations and toolkits that FPA brings into the mix also. So today we're going to do a little bit of a double act. I'm going to hand over to Dominic here, who is sporting his very nice Christmas jumper, and he'll take you through the key areas of the website, where to find the various documents and toolkits and how to benefit most from it. And then I'll be returning later on just to discuss a new initiative on the Business and Property Protection portal that is now being launched, which is a further nice opportunity to fully exploit the deliverables of the scheme. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Dominic, who can assist you making the most of the scheme itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Now, for those of you well rehearsed and familiar with Risk Authority, accessing the toolkit, navigating, then hands-on parts, the first part of this session might not teach you anything that new. However, there may be a couple of hints and tips that you may not be aware of. But like Jim said, today's session has actually come about as a request from some of our members, big and small. Reason being that the introduction of these webinars and also the wider appeal of our toolkits and big data infrastructure projects has seen Risk Authority reach out wider than the traditional risk control surveying audience. And also working with many of the main contacts, we've seen a big increase in new accounts this year. And with this, a request for us to go over some of the key benefits as well as the basics such as access and registration. Now, I presume that you know what Risk Authority is, our purpose, history, pedigree. If not, you can find this information easily enough on the website. And in terms of what are the benefits of membership, this will be covered in part during the session this morning. However, there's more strategic, intangible benefits that are in play here, benefits such as thought leadership and reinvesting in the industry for the sake of your customers, all quite difficult to quantify, but important nevertheless. Here is a nice visual screenshot of our membership class of 2016. So, excuse me, starting at the beginning, to access core member benefits such as our documents, resources, toolkits, you need to go to our website and you need to log in. Now, for those listening right now, there's a high probability you will have an account, although we do allow our webinar invitations to be shared, forwarded to colleagues, etc. For those perhaps listening via recording, perhaps through a member's own network or through our own website, it may be less obvious. For those not a member, registration has been made very simple. All we ask for is your name, company, and email. And there's a few key points on this slide. The process is not automated. We do get a few non-insurer members attempting to register, so we need to be able to control this aspect. The access can take about an hour. That's how often the website and the database sync. For those that have been a Risk Authority member for a while, they may remember the old site. This was previously an overnight job. Some members of the scheme have created a generic account, such as riskengineering@xinsurer.com. This is quite handy as a backup. That's handy if you've got new starters that you're looking to set up immediately. The downside to this is that I'm unable to report two main contacts, the individual usage and access of our toolkits. The important benefit is down the bottom here, and that is only those with an account can access, benefit, and receive communications. And by communications, I also mean receive invitations to our events, such as our webinars. The forgotten password. So for those of you not sure if you've got an account or you can't remember your password, recommend that you use our forgotten password function. If the website recognizes your email, you will be sent a new password pretty much instantly. If not, as in the screen grab below, it's then time for you to register. So this is quite a good little tip for those that can't quite remember if they have got an account or not. It saves you having to go through the whole registration process. Did you know that when you're logged into the RISCAuthority website, you can actually skip across to the FPA or the F&RS journal sites without the need to log back in? The system's been built to recognise your privileges. So as RISCAuthority members, you can access all areas of the FPA website without having to log back in. The same is also true of the F&RS sites. Here you can access the F&RS copy digitally if you don't receive a hard copy. And this works vice versa as well. So you can log on to the F&RS site and then skip across to the RISCAuthority site if required. Also, on the RISCAuthority homepage site, there's a drop-down button called Our Site, and this is a quick link to the blog. On this site are all the articles and viewpoints authored by RISCAuthority conveners and experts. We've got all our large loss statistical reviews. There's the ability to post comments. We've got a nice tag cloud, so you can search for documents by subject or area of interest. There's also the option to download as PDFs as well. This site's well worth a visit if you haven't come across it before. Also is a quick link to the robust download site as well. Now, not all of our resources are behind a password-protected firewall. For ease of access and to promote risk control advice to businesses, we have our free document library. So here we've got our risk control, our building security and business continuity guides. These are all open access, there's direct URLs, there's lots of linking and multiple sharing options. And we also supply printed versions to RISCAuthority member companies' main contacts. Also part of the free document library is our suite of risk review reports, and even the most downloaded resource on the free document library. It's been over 4,000 downloads in 2016, and these are set for an update next year. Now, to access the Insurer Resources, you do need to sign in. You'll see here on the slide, I've successfully done that. On the Insurer document library, just because I get asked quite a few times where the webinars are. So on that tab are all our recordings and slide decks of all previous webinars that we've hosted. And here are all our Insurer Toolkits, which Jim's going to go through after me. Now, our toolkits are iframes, and by this I mean that they're embedded into the web page. Now, there's one exception to this rule, which is the Fire and Rescue Response geomapping site, which I've identified here. This requires a separate username and password, which is provided on the actual web page. I think we're going to be changing this password in 2017 now, just to let you know. And here is the F&RS response mapping tool. So the reason this toolkit is not embedded is that we've actually made it available to UK Fire and Rescue Services and some other good egg organisations. The Fire and Rescue Services, who supplies their station, crewing, appliance, AFA policy data, they found the tool quite useful for exploring sort of change scenarios, cross-boundary support, and also validating current response provision as well. A quick sneak as well, preview on the working group pages. So anyone who is a member of the working group, this is where they can, which we have 9 now, they can access all the documents and meeting details, documentation through the website. For member main contacts, I've actually set them up with access to all the groups, so they've got improved visibility and monitoring of the work programme. Now, excuse me. Now, I've made reference to the main contacts a few times this morning, and whilst myself, Jim, or the working group conveners who are on hand to answer, resolve issues, etc. It's often the main contact that will sign off working group representation, perhaps attendance at events, receipt of our documents. And these are the guys who will sit on the forum and the executive committee and help shape strategy in our work programme. So for any internal queries and feedback on the scheme, suggestions for future projects, etc., these would be the people to go through. So if you just look out for your insurer and the contact name. And this is slide 2 as well. So I'm going to hand you back over to Jim, who's going to now talk in more detail about the toolkits. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dominic. That was very good indeed. And I think that was an excellent demonstration of how well Dominic has the administration of the scheme organised around the website. And it's probably fair enough to say that really all the tools have been designed so that they are accessible to the full extent by yourselves. And a good example here is the large loss database, where traditionally I think you used to ask us to query it, but actually all the facilities to access every piece of data is downloadable for you to do that if it's not already done within the graphing system that we already have. Now, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the data publications and applications that we have. You'll note over 2016, we've had a large drive to really produce systems that will assist you with risk control provision and underwriting. And what I wanted to describe is an initiative which really pulls all this together, the entire suite of documents, so that we can attempt to deliver it intelligently to where it's required at the end of the day, to where it can be most effective. And it requires some infrastructure, but over the years we built up the tools to achieve this. So our ambition really is a lot of work to describe something very simple. Use everything we have available to us, all the data tools we have available, to deliver our very important library of documents and toolkits to where they're needed. And for the first time, really, the biggest audience here, we are looking really to reach the company directors themselves, finance managers and their risk managers, so that we can reduce the need for third-party intermediaries to do this. They are the biggest audience, and they are the people where we have the greatest challenge trying to convince of the benefits of taking on additional risk control provisions which are not mandated by government. It's quite a challenge, but we have some nice things at our disposal to try and achieve this. Toolkits that we have a large loss database that can give us insight into loss history and the challenges there. Business sector risk review reports, which Dominic just referred to, which are a lovely distillation of loss review into simple categories by business occupancy. The Informer database, which I'm sure you're aware of, a very large geographical database. Fire and Rescue Service Response Tool, how the fire and rescue services can respond to any given instance of any given place. What their policies are for dealing with automatic fire alarms, which ranges from full turnout through to obviously call challenging and not turning out at all. We have our library, our toolkits. Of course, we hope to bring another good wisdom as well. We don't provide an all-encompassing library for all perils, but there are other organisations that can help assist us with filling in these holes. So where do we find these on the website? Dominic, these all come under Insurer Member Toolkits. And from my own perspective, this is the most exciting part of the website because there's some very powerful stuff here, and it really is state-of-the-art modelling that has gone into this. The Informer database, as I described, is it's a slightly utilitarian front end. But at the end of the day, by putting in a postcode, selecting the occupancy category, you can receive a bespoke report for geographical risk at that postcode, covering an enormous number of perils and issues, potentially important risk issues. So all the UK census data is there. It tells you about the people living in it and the properties they live in. We have crime data, we have flood data, automatic fire and rescue service response, there's a very nice distillation of some very advanced modelling of fire and rescue service response in there. We have hydrant data for a very large portion of the country, not complete yet, but it's improving each time we update it. Coma sites, mining activity, landfill sites, where schools are, and I think I don't need to go through all these. But there are about 800 fields in all at each and every one of the 1.8 million postcodes, which really provides you with a lot of insight into a postcode location without actually going there, which can be a very powerful thing. The large loss database and the business sector risk review reports were published in a number of forms. On the bottom left hand of the screen here, this is a screenshot from the analysis tool that's accessible through the RISCAuthority website. Now, it is written in Silverlight, Microsoft Silverlight, which some platforms do not support, and maybe your own company infrastructure may not have it. But it is very, very powerful in the graphing that can be done on the select tools. But here you can do full analysis of ignition source, the finances associated with loss, split up into all its correct insurance components. And if the graphing doesn't do it for you, then actually you can select your controls for analysis very simply and export all the case data into an Excel spreadsheet to download direct to your desktop so you can do the whole analysis yourself. So there is no request which you could ask us to do by way of analysis that you can't actually do yourself through that toolkit. So it's quite empowering. On the reverse of it, there's a brief summary of these on the business sector risk review reports. There's one for waste issued there. And then on the flip side of that is a lot of risk control information that is pertinent to the risk profile that is, or from what the data is telling us, if you like. So very powerful. But for ourselves, if we're trying to deliver information, this tells us what key range of challenges are to this particular business risk category. So if we're trying to deliver information to people, this is invaluable stuff. It can tell us if firefighting has been hampered by the presence of acetylene cylinders. And we can use that as a trigger to deliver our fire safety of acetylene cylinder guidance and the like. The fire rescue service response tool, as Dominic's already alluded to. Now, this is a very important tool for lots of reasons. But in case of delivering information, one of the things that we really do need to communicate to businesses around the UK is that not only is the fire service not necessarily there to protect their business, they really are life safety, more life safety focused, and they have a mandate for that, but no mandate for protecting or taking any risk to protect business or properties. And so we can set a level of response where actually this could provide a trigger to describe to any user or any business that actually the fire and rescue service will not be there turning up in time at an appropriate rate of response to save your business. So then you can ask the question, in light of that knowledge, what are you going to do about it yourself? And it's a very powerful argument. We found that this is one of the most engaging tools with customers for invoking change in their attitude to being a little bit more self-sufficient. The other critical bit of information, it's nice saying how long it'll take a fire engine to get to where it needs to be, but actually the very large part of the picture is what it actually takes to get a fire engine launched in the first place. And the commercial sector is obviously very reliant on automatic fire alarm systems, since during out of work hours they're often unoccupied. The fire services, the response to automatic fire alarms across the fire service is very varied. In fact, you will have the same number of combinations of response as you will number of fire services. And this is because some have had to introduce some quite draconian measures to deal with a very poor false alarm rate. And when you have false alarm rates of 90+% on AFA type systems, it's clearly not viable to send full weight fire engines out to all these false events. So in order to deal with this, they have various policies. But this needs to be communicated to the business owner clearly, because they could find themselves standing outside their building with alarms ringing on the assumption that the fire service is coming, when actually additional actions are required, such as picking up the phone and dialing 999. If they don't know this, it could be quite problematic. So again, we have another database, which is all available through the website, which details this for each and every fire authority. Again, we can use this as triggers within any portal that we produce to basically say, if at that postcode there is an automatic fire response policy that means further actions that may be required, we can use this as a means of delivering to the user guidance on actions or the part that they need to play to ensure an effective or a speedy response. Now, within Risk Authority, Dominic showed the range of working groups that we have. We have quite a few, and they're quite prolific in their output, and some very good libraries from the Risk Control Group, Security Group, suppression guides, training guides, software and toolkits, such as the business continuity, the software tool, robust the software toolkit, and some business continuity paper guides as well. And of course, to fill in the gaps, we have we don't produce too much on flood yet. Actually, we have a document about to be released, but we can go to other sources from supplied through government, environment agency, HSE, CFPA Europe. There are many other guides that we can pull in, which we feel are tick the boxes for us, and that they are reputable, unbiased, and free, and worthy of filling in the gaps we don't cover. Now, the mechanism for producing this portal is quite straightforward. There's an analysis engine, basically, and what we're looking to do is to produce something which is suitable for business users who know very little about our business, but they will know what their company name is, they will know the type of business, and they know where it is. And with a few overriders, some checkboxes to tick, by providing us those simple bits of information, we can go to our big data sets, and we can assist them understand what the critical issues are at that location for their business type. And we can use those as triggers to trigger the sources of guidance that we can deliver to them to produce a report for them that will be invaluable to them in protecting their business in the longer term. And the trick here is the cleverer you can be with data, the less you deliver. And this helps to keep everything very focused, so we keep the content down, but we keep the relevance as high as it possibly can be. And this was the shape of the business protection portal. It's not just risk control data that we need to deliver to business and geography. We should also be supporting the obligated life safety issues, because obviously we draw a lot of benefit about that from that element of protection also. So the reports that we produce really have a number of sections which deal with life safety, business type risks, and this is drawn from subject matter understanding of, if you're in warehousing, we can make associations. It's likely you have a forklift truck, so let's deliver the guide on forklift truck recharging. But if the data can also tell us things, if for some strange reason one day the settling became an issue in fighting fires in nursery schools, I can't think why, but if the data starts to tell us that it does, then we can use the large loss database to do triggers on business type, and so we start seeing settling guides delivered to the protection of nursery schools. Perhaps a silly example, but hopefully demonstrates the point. The Informer database describes the geographical risks. So if it says you're on a floodplain, it would be remiss not to be delivering guidance on how to deal with that. And likewise, if your AFA response is challengeable, then we should give guidance on that. If your business is actually located over a legally protected water source, then we need to let them know about that, because again, that could curtail firefighting activities, and there may be some pre-preparation they could do to assist the fire rescue service on that point. Then we have common and universal business risks. Now, these are generally things which will always be there, such as providing business continuity, having a business continuity plan, and it assists us deliver tools to assist with those. And then we have these overriders, and these are things which are nothing to do with the type of business. to do where the business might be, that are of interest to you and insurance as a whole, because they introduce challenges of their own. In construction, void buildings, suppression, heritage, tall buildings, electronic and data processing rooms. These are overriders which may or may not be applicable. So we make these as very simply selectable tick boxes that we can then deliver risk control guidance against. So if you tick the void building box, you're going to get stuff on security systems for void buildings. You may get a guide on metal theft and protecting against that. If you tick tall buildings, you may get something on evacuation or specific evacuation procedures, lightning protection, and then you can see where this goes. So intelligent selection. At the end of the day, what we're looking for is for these inputs that we put in, a report filled with guidance suggestions that smells right to you as the expert at the end of the day, so you would entrust a business to deploy it. The attraction to a tool like this, obviously with rising survey thresholds, maybe solutions like this can assist with filling in the holes of the people who you may no longer need to assign risk control to. What the portal looks like, a very simple interface. It would be lovely to be able to demonstrate this live to you, but I'm afraid we can't do it through this webinar system currently. So I'm afraid I've got a series of stills. But there is a web address for some example sites at the end, which I would encourage you to write down and have a play with directly after the seminar. You can see exactly how it works. Here's one created for RISCAuthority. Business name, and that is purely so that we can customize the header on the report. It's not collected for any other reason. We collect no data from this, so there are no data protection issues. Business type, we use very recognizable SIC codes. For those who are familiar with the occupancy categories that we use to collect large loss data against, these are very cumbersome, and we decided that they were not useful or meaningful to this endeavor. So we have produced, based on SIC codes, slightly curtailed down to about 180 categories of business, something which will be much more recognizable to the customer than the basis on which we collect large loss data on. So we've described business type and their postcode, and then you can see a series of 4 overrider checkboxes. In the next version, there'll be 2 additional ones for void buildings and EDPM rooms. And then simply you click submit, and what happens then is a document will appear in PDF format, which is hot linked to all the good risk control guidance that we choose to deliver against the inputs. Now, one of the best in the world, nobody's across the UK, I think it's probably safe to assume that nobody's heard of FPA or RISCAuthority. So one of the greatest challenges is really fully exploiting a tool like this. So we've developed in a format where we can produce an infinite number of front ends, which can be delivered, which will essentially deliver the same universal library data set. However, we can also augment this functionality so that we have an example here created for QBE, and we'll be creating it for many of you out there at the moment, your own versions. But we can also augment the universal data set with a library which stems from the website of origin. So against the QBE, I think we've uploaded 50 or 100 of their risk control documents against it, and we can assign triggers to those information resources, which might be documents, videos, guides, toolkits, software, it could be anything really. But we can make them trigger in the same way as the universal data set delivers information. And they will be identified within the document, but they will be delivered only from the website of origin. So you will get QBE data through QBE website, in addition to the universal data set. You don't have to have any additional library set if you feel that what's delivered from the RISCAuthority version is appropriate. It can just be logoed up and exploit the universal library set also. So here are some inputs, just by way of example: ACME Printing Limited, Industrial Process and Manufacturing Printing. We have a postcode here, which is, I think, for yes, I think it's a football ground. Old Trafford. Yeah, well, I knew they had 2 football grounds. And we've highlighted construction issues. And just by way of example, what we get back. Here's, I'm afraid I've had to carve up the report, but please do have a play. So the geographical data is telling us that some types of crime are above the national average in this location. Crime is separated out into things which are relevant to vandalism and damage, and into theft. And of course, depending on which type of crime that is, we can assign risk control guidance to deal with either or both of those. It says there may be a flooding risk at that location, and it's also telling us that they have an AFA policy which might involve call challenging as well. Useful stuff to know. Lower down, you can see the 5 sections that we have just to guide the user. I think the important thing here is to demonstrate to the user that this report has been produced with some intelligence in the background, so they're much more likely to listen to it. And here we see some other challenges in these tick boxes to demonstrate to them what has influenced the report. So clearly the large loss data is telling us that in printing type risks, access for firefighting has been a problem, and that has curtailed the effectiveness of the fire rescue service when they turn up. On that trigger, we can develop guidance for it. Crime statistics, floodplain location, fire service response, and it even shows that use of a settings is triggered there. So we'd expect in this report to see some guidance on how to deal with that. Just to make them aware of what the cost of a major fire is as well, it is always very powerful to deliver the number, how much it really costs and how that is apportioned. And so to engage with this particular customer, we're hopefully demonstrating that a major fire typically costs around £1 million, and of that, the majority of damage is actually business interruption. Will hopefully prompt them to start thinking in terms of getting a business continuity plan sorted. And of course, then let's go to ameliorate the size of the loss. Now, I just wanted to show you here, if I put in a different postcode, and this was strangely enough, my home postcode, it comes up with a different risk of critical warnings. So, environmentally sensitive area, flooding risk. Not only is the fire and rescue service response challenged, but it's also very slow and probably unlikely to be any use to really keeping my business going in the event of a fire. So just put this in to show you that the responses come back are different on a postcode by postcode basis, and that influences very heavily the guidance which will be delivered. So in this case, the environmentally sensitive area one will trigger an EA document on really how to protect the environment around you and what your obligations are in that respect. So looking at the sections, first thing to notice is, so if I just go back, I should have said the first thing to notice is the report is also logoed up with the same logo from the website of origin, so that it is customized. So for your customers, it still remains really very much in your ownership. Legislative controls, we see a mix of documents here, to really dealing mostly with life safety and some core bits of wisdom. Anything labelled in brackets afterwards has come from the library set of the website of origin. Anything without is in brackets forms part of the universal library set. And so hopefully for our printing industry, you'll see that what's down here is pertinent. Business risks pertinent to the business type itself, industrial processing, manufacturing, with subcategory of printing. We have ammonia refrigeration in there. I'll have to look into the controls which have gone in on that. That one's a bit of a surprise to me, but maybe there's good reason for it. But often these things are accompanied by warehousing. The sprinkler systems has probably come in because we are trying to encourage sprinkling of premises of this type. It's all down to the controls put in place. But I think you can see that it's protection of IT systems, control of chemicals, protection of CCTV systems, and the use of tanks and different types of lighting are not unreasonable to see in a report of this type. Although these are early days, I haven't set these the triggers with any. We haven't formalised it absolutely yet. To assist with risk control guidance specific to postcode, in this place in the middle of Manchester, it told us that flood might be a problem, so there are some flood risk guides there. In fact, these basically are all flood risk guides aside from the last one, which has told me that the crime data is telling me that arson is above the national average there, so here's an arson prevention guide. And if you click on any of these are hot links direct to the source. we are trying here to really engage the user direct with the document, not to take them off to other websites where they will then have to log in. People don't have time for that. This is all about engaging an already reluctant audience. So we're trying to reduce any hoops that they have to jump through at any given time. Additional recommendations, in this case, it's pulling up the guide to electrical surveys, hot works permit. These are mostly QB documents, uses of portable heaters in commercial premises. Not too surprised to see. But then because we checked the box to do with construction, in this case I currently have void buildings coming into this as well, but HSE guides and our own guides for hot work, safety and construction, electronic security for empty buildings. And then those are the 5 sections. There is an additional section in the back which is just a series of words to help the customer understand what their mandated obligations are under the health and safety at work and the workplace regulations. So automatic report building, which hopefully can help assist you engage with your customers. Now, please go and have a play. This is early days. We haven't confirmed the libraries yet. The universal library set is not complete. But certainly between the Risk Authority one and maybe the QBE one that's created, we may have created one for your company also. You can see the differences in its functionality, and really it will be the work of the intervention and monitoring group within Risk Authority to really keep this well tuned so that the right sort of information is delivered, and most importantly, you get the sort of report that you would expect to get containing the information that you would normally yourself deliver to these types of businesses described in the geographies that they reside in. I should add, there is some further work going on. What we have found is that data does bloat very quickly, and when other libraries are introduced, obviously there can be repetition also. So in the course of the next 2 weeks, we will see a change whereby documents from the Universal Library may be removed if the website of origin holds a library or a library entry which does the same job essentially. And also consigning things like I found a particular challenge with protection of server rooms and EDPM facilities. But nowadays, it's not safe to just assume that all big business has a server room. So much work is being conducted in the cloud now that I need to consign that to a checkbox, because if I don't, we end up delivering, it's a large raft of documents. I think there are 5 sections on it within the risk control suite, and of course insurers may have their own also. So really to dump into a report 8 documents covering that particular element when actually it might not be well selected by the business type input, you can see just serves to complicate a report, and we are trying to keep the weight down. So hopefully by these processes we'll be able to get content down still further with maintaining relevance. So I think we're in discussions with many of your organizations about having your own portal. We are also being asked to look into producing an API for the Informa data and the portal so that they can be used within your own systems. And I can confirm that that is being dealt with and is in hand now and will be delivered quite shortly. I mentioned 2 additional checkboxes to limit content and relevance. We need to do a tuning and trigger sensitivity study. And one of the things I'm looking at here is, how much above the national crime level, or should we start the documents on a particular type of crime? And so we need to do a little bit of a study on that. And I mentioned also the duplication module to really deduplicate the information which may come from the Universal Library in association with other users' libraries. So that's what we have coming. There will also be some additional pages on the back, which will be really a rules page for filling in against each of the critical warnings identified, so that this can also serve for the user of it to provide a response. Basically, the toolkit and the data highlights there is an issue with this for your type of business and where it is. Here's a library of information that says somewhere here are the solutions, choose whichever ones you like. And so we'll just produce a blank page on the back so they can actually say, okay, we've been made aware of what the problem is, we've read the library, Now, what we plan to do is this, and that can make a very nice return to you as the insurer. Thank you very much from my perspective. I'm going to hand you back to Dominic, who will hopefully be talking about future webinars and also answering a few questions. Right. So I do have one question here that's popped up on the screen. Please could you remind me how we access Business and Property Protection Portal. If I just return the slides back, the only thing that changes in the portal is the stem of the website. Whatever one instance we create, it will always be .bpp.riscauthority.co.uk. But the starting point is the thing that changes. We have one for Risk Authority, there'll be one for FPA, QBE in this instance, and for any other company. It will always be of that same shape and format. Have a play, and you should receive a PDF direct to your screen. We also have I'd be very pleased to hear back on your feedback. It's not tuned in yet, but it does not have total content yet. So the remarks are more about possibly taking it forward. And so one more question's come in about whether they have a copy of this PowerPoint for the references. Look at Dominic, these are all uploaded with the webinar on the part of the website. So I'm going to hand you back to Dominic. I've got one question which I've written on a piece of paper for him, which he can answer. Thank you very much for listening, and have a very nice Christmas.
Thanks, Jim. The next 3 webinars, these will be put on the website, if not today, Monday. We are going to be doing a webinar on this new flood document. For those members that attended our seminar in London, John Hall from Resilience Advisors has been engaged to write a document on flood. This is very close to being published. If you weren't there, the presentation is available on the website as well. We're going to do a webinar specifically on the portal. And Jim is also going to be doing a webinar on suppression and the different types of suppression technology. This is on the back of a new working group that he's going to be chairing. That's going to sort of come away from the active working group that tends to just focus on sprinklers. Thank you ever so much for attending today. I hope it was useful. The recording is going to be made publicly available on the website. I think this is quite a good webinar for those new to the scheme. Potential new members, they can get an understanding of how access and registration all works. There'll be a feedback survey as soon as you close down your program today. I believe our offices close next Friday, sort of 1 p.m, and then we're back open again on the 3rd of January. So again, Merry Christmas. Hope you have a very, very peaceful, restful break. Thank you. Goodbye.